Hello everybody, welcome back to the second episode in our mini-series of Leighton's Expert Exchange, where we are focusing on innovation in Ireland. My name is Sarah Anderson, I'm Head of Partnerships for UK and Ireland here at Leighton, and I am joined by the lovely Darragh Gaffney, who is joining us from IRDG today as our guest appearance. So welcome.
Thanks very much, Sarah.
Can I ask you to make an introduction to yourself, please?
Yeah, perfect. My name is Darragh Gaffney, obviously. I work for the IRDG Innovation Network, and we are a business-led innovation network in Ireland. And maybe before I dig into who IRDG is and what we do around the Irish innovation ecosystem, I'll quickly introduce myself and give my own background. So my title within the organisation is Director of Growth and Sustainability, but in reality we're a small, lean organisation. So as you know yourself, you end up doing a bit of everything. My background then is of a technical nature. So my background is chemistry and enzymology. So I've a BSc in chemistry and then did a PhD in chemistry mixed in with some enzymology and biotechnology as well.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a fairly mixed 4 years, and I did that down at the University of Limerick.
Fab.
As I wrapped up my PhD, actually, there was a number of new positions going in analog devices. So many people may know analog devices make a huge amount of semiconductor chips that go into every single device. So joined the team. They were building out a new development fab, new development production process there, and that was a fantastic opportunity. And I always say analog, of the near 4 years that I spent there, did a fantastic job of industrializing me.
Yeah.
You know, they converted me from my PhD, go off on research tangents, to actually focused research and applied research, you know, that needs to deliver on commercial priorities. However, I wanted to get back towards my biotech background, and the opportunity came to join a really innovative startup that was part of a larger organisation called Monaghan Biosciences, in the area of fungal biotechnology. I joined the team there. There was 12 at the time. Joined the team as the customer applications lead, so doing a lot of bench work, but also having to present results to customers. And then within the year, actually, I got promoted to R&D director. Took the team over. It was 12 scientists at the time and grew it to nearly 36. Wow. 36 scientists. And over the course of 6 or 7 years there, cut my teeth in every aspect of the research, development and innovation ecosystem. Not only within Ireland, but also within Europe. And to a lesser extent, we had customers that were in Southeast Asia, we had customers in America, so understanding how the R&D methodologies and frameworks that we're applying had to work for different geographies as well. As a result, became really proficient at leveraging every aspect of the RD&I ecosystem in Ireland. Whether that was R&D tax credits, whether it was leveraging grant funding opportunities, both nationally, but also Europe, brought in some multi-million euro projects as part of Horizon Europe funding, but then all the while having to deliver, for your customer on time, on target, on budget, and commercializing that new enzyme technology into emerging markets. So a fantastic opportunity.
Huge opportunity, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. So while I was there, I was actually a member of the IRDG Innovation Network. And at the time always found it a fantastic organisation. When the time came to step out of Monaghan Biosciences, did some consultancy for about a year. I'd built up a very strong pan-European network, and then a position came up within IRDG, and it just felt like a natural
Next
fit.
Step.
Yeah, absolutely, and that was about 4.5 years ago at this stage.
Fantastic, so, and you've never looked back?
No, absolutely not. And I actually joined IRDG 4 weeks before the first lockdown.
Wow.
For the first COVID lockdown. So an interesting time to
definitely,
to join, but actually a really exciting time because, ironically, the space that COVID gave to a huge amount of companies actually gave them a huge amount of mental bandwidth, but also resource bandwidth, actually to go after all those innovation projects.
It's funny how it actually drove everybody to, just focus all their energies on innovation and reinventing, what they're doing or what their focus area was, or, looking at new opportunities that you would never have done before because you didn't have time to focus your energies on looking for something new. And it drove a huge amount of innovation, not just in Ireland, globally across the world.
So I should probably kick into then who IRDG is. If I go backwards a small bit, okay, IRDG was established back in 1992, so we're just over 30 years old, 32 years old. And actually it was founded by 6 companies in Ireland at the behest of who was at the time the Minister for Commerce, not even Enterprise, the Minister for Commerce, Desi O'Malley. And basically he told these companies to establish a voice of industry for R&D in Ireland. Yeah. So these 6 companies came together and did exactly that, and they established IRDG. Yeah. And if you fast forward then, I suppose the number of years we've grown from those 6 original founding members to what is nearly 300 members across Ireland, and that includes all the academic institutions as well. Yeah. Our remit originally was around representation and being that voice of industry to feed into government policy. However, that's expanded exponentially since 1992. We now deliver value across our members, and our members are completely multi-sectoral. Yeah. They are in every facet of life and in business and industry in Ireland, and are in every sector. Yeah. They are also a very strong mix of SMEs and large entities.
Yeah, I noticed that at the last event that you guys hosted, there was everything from 2-man firm right the way through to your major blue chip organisations that are global presence and have set up camp in Ireland.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's a core facet of what we try and drive is that we do not want any SMEs to be left behind. Yep. Absolutely, we always recognise that quite often it is the large entities or the multinationals that maybe have the extra resource to be able to network and get involved, and maybe something that does not have a solid connection to the bottom line impact, and they can invest in those. And we don't want SMEs to be excluded as a result. So we've about, of that 300 members, about 65% are SMEs, and about 35% then is the mix of, there's not too many large indigenous Irish, so it is primarily multinational members. Yeah. How do we deliver value? I mean, we are not for profit, but we're also not government funded. So we are a private entity, and we are funded completely by our membership subscriptions. So it's a rolling annual membership fee, and as a result, whether you pay €50 or whether you pay €5,000 or €50,000, there has to be bang for your buck. Yeah. So we deliver value across R&D tax credits first and foremost. Okay, believe it or not, IRDG brought a consortium over from Canada back in the early noughties to visit the Department of Finance and the Department of Enterprise as it became, to actually talk about the Canadian R&D tax credit scheme and the impact that such a scheme could have in Ireland. Yeah. Fast forward then, we run masterclasses every 6 to 8 weeks around R&D tax credits. We are not tax advisors, and we do not pretend to be tax advisors. So we leave that to the experts, and they're delivered on our behalf to our members. Very well subscribed, and as you can imagine, probably one of the primary reasons why CFOs or finance directors sign off on our annual membership fee.
Definitely.
The second area then is the grant funding ecosystem in Ireland. Anybody who is active in this space in Ireland knows that in reality you more than likely fall into either local enterprise office if you're below 10 employees, or Enterprise Ireland if you're an Irish entity above that 10 employees or export sales. Yeah. Or if you are a non-national entity, then you would fall into the IDA Ireland bracket. There is a whole suite of grants available.
There's substantially more opportunity for grant funding in Ireland than there is in other areas of Europe in particular. Yeah. And the access that you guys have in front of you is huge.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's that's both a positive, but then also represents a challenge. Yes. And this is often then where we come in. I suppose, given all of the team within IRDG have lived in the ecosystem, so very quickly, I actually spend a chunk of my time often either in person or on a Zoom call, talking to our member companies and go, tell me what your pipeline of projects looks like.
Yeah.
What's the kind of quantum of spend? How many people are you going to have to put at it? What's the commercial opportunity there? And because we live in the ecosystem, we can very quickly go, that pot of cash, that pot of cash, or that pot of cash.
Yeah, you help navigate the minefield.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And quite often, I mean, as I'm sure anybody who works in the area, maybe not just in R&D or innovation, knows they may have a managing director or a senior leader or something goes, I heard there's a new funding opportunity, go and get the money.
Yeah.
For what? I don't care, just go and get
the money. Yeah.
You know? And then quite often actually the admin burden to actually make a square peg fit a round hole.
Reverse engineer it almost, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it ends up nearly being more hassle than it's worth.
And it becomes,
but look, I mean, there is big pots of cash there. You
Definitely.
know, I mean, if you're an Enterprise Ireland client, you can access anywhere between 25 and 45% grant funding for an R&D project. You know, up to a quantum of, you know, 300,000 euros.
Yeah.
Like that's a large.
It's a lot of money.
Absolutely, no matter what. And the fantastic aspect about it is that actually the R&D tax credit system and the grant funding system can be stacked on top of each other.
They work together.
Yeah, absolutely. And I am still blown away by the amount of companies that I speak to that do not, or that penny has not dropped, or are not aware of that.
Yeah.
You know, the fact that just because you're in receipt of an Enterprise Ireland grant or an IDA Ireland grant, it doesn't matter who the funder is for a project, you can still claim your 30% rebate on the balance, on the net amount of that grant funding. So that's the two main pillars, and that's probably the large tangible areas that we deliver for our members. The third part then is definitely around training, and this is where we started to expand, and in particular around effectively how do you do more with less, and how do you deliver more bang for your buck, one way or another. Innovation can feel risky, and it can feel expensive, and quite often actually the investment burden to get started can feel significant as well. So anything you can do then to de-risk that process of innovation is always welcome. So again, we would have pioneered the launch of design thinking into Ireland about 15 years ago. You know, made famous, maybe not as well known, but by IBM. But the iPod was a physical manifestation of a design thinking process. You know, the product none of us knew we needed. You know, for instance.
And then none of us went without.
Absolutely, and arguably the last great product consumer innovation that has happened. But I think that's potentially a separate conversation. I don't know if anything has really emotionally caught the zeitgeist as much as the iPod has.
I'm pretty sure my mum still has the, you know, teeny tiny little clip-on version that came at the end.
Absolutely. So that was design thinking, and then we also brought in lean product development. You know, so Irish companies have become very good at lean manufacturing, those that physically manufacture goods, and we said, well, how can we layer lean processes into it. So we brought a guy, Ron Mascatelli, guy over from the US, and another guy, Bob Cooper, who is known as the father of StageGate for anybody that may use or be aware of the StageGate process. And they run, you know, immersive 4-day courses for us, and always have. Obviously, a lot of that has moved online these days. And we're now obviously then moving into the area of AI and the area of innovation management standards. Again, the next evolution. So from an upskilling point of view and a training point of view, we're continually looking to push the boundaries there. And our latest bit then has actually been to you know, push the ISO 56002 innovation management standards in Ireland. A fantastic framework to actually make that process feel less risky. I feel like I'm going on a bit, but
fine, go for it.
But the other bits we do are probably then a little bit more intangible. So absolutely, we run physical events which are fantastic networking opportunities. We do site innovation visits, where we bring anywhere between 25 to 40 senior leaders of our membership physically on site to a member company so that they can showcase their site. This is not a business development opportunity. This is about having an open and transparent conversation and a fantastic opportunity to see what good and excellent looks like.
It's a thought leadership.
Absolutely, that's exactly it. And because quite often, because the network is multi-sectoral, it's not a competitor. So people are very happy and open to have
share.
Absolutely, that's exactly it. You know, and in reality, like, I mean, no matter what sector you are in, you may be coming up against challenges, but there's a very strong chance that somebody else has been there, done that already.
Definitely.
You know, and it's not until we look outside our own four walls that we realise actually somebody's already ploughed that path for us. You know, and then the last part that we do is we run an annual innovation summit. So that'll take place end of September.
End of September,
yeah. I know you guys are going to come along.
We are.
300 R&D and innovation leaders in Ireland, and again, it's a fantastic opportunity just to rub shoulders and see where that bleeding edge of innovation is actually going, as well as actually getting practical examples of how other companies have actually delivered on either product or service innovation.
And I think a huge part of that as well for, in particular, SMEs will be what opportunities they've had. We talked about mitigating risk when it comes to upfront investment. The idea, the concept, the design that sits behind the innovation is fantastic, but what can you do? So for SME, it's a good opportunity for them to learn a little bit more about what funding opportunities there are out there. You know, the grants, as you said, are the R&D. It's, you know, different options for them that will hopefully generate, you know, more traction on the grant application, the tax credit applications, especially within SME.
Absolutely, yeah. And SMEs are quite often the ones that, it is the key area in Ireland that the government agencies are now targeting to ramp up their innovation. I think Denmark is always held up as a bastion in Europe of innovation, and don't get me wrong, there's usually the government money goes into innovation there, but it's also a mindset. You know, that and in reality we have to remember as well that Ireland as a nation is still a young nation. You know, we're only 100 years old, celebrating centenary this year, and actually our business community and our SME base has evolved rapidly in the last 20 to 30 years. I mean, if you look 20 years ago, I mean, I think there was maybe 300 companies in Ireland carrying out, you know, I don't know, about approximately 800 million euros worth of industry-focused R&D. Fast forward 20 years, we're now looking at, what, nearly 1,700 companies made an R&D tax credit claim back in 23. 4 billion is what they spent, you know, on industry-focused R&D. And look, some naysayers may say that's skewed by multinationals, but actually if you dig into those figures, don't get me wrong, a chunk of that 4 billion is multinationals, but there are a huge amount of SMEs in there making claims, you know, of anywhere between 100, 200k, which means they're spending anywhere up to 4 to 600k per annum on R&D projects.
And what do you think the hesitation is for SMEs that haven't taken the leap yet to look at getting their R&D tax credit funded?
I think it can be fear-based. So, you know, revenue is an entity that we all know is set up to take money away from us, not to give money back to us. You know, and I think sometimes, especially if business is going okay, companies look at it and go, do you know what, risk reward, is it worth bringing revenue down on me for an audit?
Let's not send them an invitation.
That's exactly it. Let's not stick our head above the parapet and we'll keep going, we can fund it ourselves in-house and we're motoring along nicely. Let's not.
Let's not put out too many questions.
Exactly.
Fair.
So a huge amount of then what we do then is to try and demystify that and to try and say, well, look, actually it's not as scary, or it doesn't have to be driven by fear as much as possible. And actually to flip that conversation and go, well, okay, well, what is the negative impact of you not claiming your R&D tax credit?
Definitely,
You know, and go, well, actually, you know, your R&D scientist or your sort of developer in the corner, you know, they could have a colleague funded.
Yeah, there could be another person
absolutely
involved.
Which could only accelerate
the process.
Your path to market. And Enterprise Ireland, release annual figures. They do an annual business survey of all Irish client companies. And they have put the numbers behind it to back this up.
Yeah.
So, Irish companies that invest in research and innovation, they've got 1.3x more profitable.
Yeah.
They've got 2.5x higher turnover. Yeah. And they are 4.7x higher export sales.
And these numbers are huge.
They're absolutely colossal.
That is massive. If you had, if you put that in front of any SME to say, here's what you can get, they would bite your hand off for it.
Absolutely. Even just at 1.3x more profitable. Yeah. That's 30%.
Yeah.
It's huge. That's a very large figure.
Definitely.
And that's and that demonstrates the impact that investment in research and innovation. Absolutely. Does it feel a little bit fuzzier than traditional business? Absolutely it does. But the reward
on the other
comes
side,
out the other side of the risk.
Good. Yeah. Why do you think, Ireland is a hub of innovation now? What are the biggest reasons that companies are coming to Ireland? And do you have a couple of examples of, success?
Sure. Look, some economists in particular may trace this all the way back to a paper that a very famous chief economist within the Department of Finance wrote called T.K. Whitaker. Okay, now back in 1958. Now, I don't know if I go that far back.
Yeah, but we love the history of it.
Yeah, absolutely. But T.K. Whitaker is always held up as a pioneering civil servant, senior civil servant who pushed, broke down the walls of protectionism and started to open Ireland up to global trade.
Yeah.
Okay. Fast forward, to the noughties and the early noughties, and what the government did is they prioritised what is called the triple helix innovation model. Yeah. Okay. So, for anybody who's not familiar with the triple helix model, it's basically where it's what involves government, academia, and industry. Yep. So the government puts in place the policies and frameworks that are, conducive to research and innovation being carried out within the country. Academia is set up to create the knowledge pipeline on which new innovations can be commercialised, and then industry are incentivised then to actually carry out the R&D, and more importantly commercialise that R&D. Yeah. So if you go back to the noughties, then there was two large things that happened very quickly within each other. The first was the establishment of Science Foundation Ireland in 2003, so 21 years ago, and set up as to be that, I suppose, generator of new knowledge, experimental research, that early technology readiness level. And for anyone who's not familiar with technology readiness level, I'll come back to it in a bit. But it's to generate that fundamental or that experimental knowledge at that really fuzzy, high risk research. The second thing that happened then in 2004, only about 18 months later, was actually the R&D tax credit scheme was established. So now you're setting up academia to start to be the gatekeepers of new knowledge creation. Yeah. And you're also now incentivizing industry to carry out in-house applied research, or to start to actually connect the dots. Can academia create new knowledge? And then can industry look to acquire that through licensing deals, through collaboration, and then commercialize that new research? And that really was, I think, that is probably the most tangible genesis of what kicked off Ireland's creation as an innovation hub. All sorts of stuff spawned out of that. I mean, we're now at a situation where we have a huge amount of industry co-funded and government-funded research centres. Yes. Many companies may be familiar with the likes of the technology gateways or the research centres, or even Science Foundation Ireland funded research centres. Yeah. A fantastic way to actually go after sectoral specific challenges that are common to many different companies. Also a fantastic way to actually tap into either capacity or resource availability one, that's expensive.
Yeah,
that may be expensive. But two, that it may not make sense for you to invest in the long term, and that you may only need access to for a 12 or 18 month period. So I think a number of those aspects are what sowed the seeds and is what has started to flourish. Now, we'll come back to one of those pillars, maybe in terms of challenges that Ireland has into the future.
Yeah.
But that's definitely what set the scene just over 20 years ago to create Ireland as an innovation hub. Now, why do we see companies starting to locate and put R&D teams, Ireland, either into their existing Irish entities or actually establish brand new entities within Ireland. And one of the aspects, actually, R&D tax credits is by and large the biggest lever there. Like, you talk to any multinational or any foreign direct investment company that is located in Ireland, and they will say, Darragh, we are here because of the R&D tax credit scheme. Because
the rates are substantial.
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, it's 25%. I know it's now gone up to 30%. But for multinationals that are under the Ep.2, that are in scope for Ep.2, it's now, I think it's a 25.2% effective rate as a result, because it's now taxable income.
Which is still mega.
That's chunky.
Huge.
You know. Yeah. And even if I talk to them and I go, well, are you also leveraging IDA Ireland R&D grants? And they're like, no, 25% is enough. It's clean, we know how to do it, and actually that's what all the corporate cares about. You know, now that's starting to shift, and I'll come back to that. The second aspect actually is the knowledge development box, and funny enough, it's a tax policy mechanism that arrived to great fanfare about 7 or 8 years ago. I can't remember exactly what year it came in, but really got stuck and mired in a number of different bits and pieces. First one straight off was state aid. So it was deemed to be breaking state aid rules to Irish industry, and in particular primary producers in That's Ireland. And in fact, and ironically, especially within the FMCG space, and ironically, that was probably the primary sector who would have actually leveraged you know, the most out of it. And so look, it actually got stuck for nearly 3 years in this back and forward between Department of Enterprise or Department of Finance and the EU. And the knowledge development box was, back when it was 12.5% corporation tax rate, allowed you to claim a 6.25% rate on revenue directly related to that IP asset. And it needed to be a formal registered IP asset, in other words, a patent. Okay, and that patent needed to be domiciled in Ireland, you know, and that was the whole point of it. Since its inception, there's 18 companies that use the knowledge development box on an annual basis. Hugely underutilized. A little bit administratively cumbersome.
It is.
You know,
it's a little bit more convoluted than the standard R&D tax code.
Yeah, absolutely. And so as a result, a lot of companies have kind of just gone hands off. And as a result, Department of Finance have reacted and said, actually, it's now gone up to 10%, as opposed to the 6.25%. Now, ironically, I've had conversations with 2 companies who have, one in the last 3 months and one in the last 12 months, have established brand new entities in Ireland. One a South American company and one a US company, a North American company. And both of them absolutely referenced R&D tax credits as a reason why they would put a 15 to 25 person team in Ireland. And access to talent was also another key aspect to that.
Because there's huge opportunity in Ireland.
Yeah, absolutely. But they also referenced the knowledge development box. And even when I said to them, you know, now that's only 10% versus the 6.25% that it was, and they said, Darragh, it doesn't make a difference. It would be 15% for us otherwise, so that's still a 5% saving for us. Even if that's seen as taxable income, 2.5% is still a large revenue stream of those IP assets. So, Department of Finance, I think next year in 25 are committed to a review of the knowledge development box.
Interesting.
with a view to then what happens to knowledge development box as a result. Yeah. I think I've touched on it there, and a key aspect, and I was listening to actually Michael Lohan, who's CEO of IDA Ireland there a few weeks back, and he was being challenged whether housing is a key obstacle for foreign direct investment into Ireland, and ultimately housing is a challenge globally.
Yes.
It's not just an Irish challenge. And he said actually access to talent is the number one question he gets asked by every single FDI company looking to establish in Ireland.
Really?
So being able to demonstrate that very strong pipeline of STEM graduates in particular within the Irish academic system is a huge advantage for the Irish ecosystem as a result. Ultimately, huge amount, maybe some people went into STEM that maybe weren't fitted. We're seeing a rebalance at the moment where actually apprenticeships are being prioritised as much as, degree courses. Yeah, absolutely.
Finance, I think, accounting are having the same kind of challenges across their side.
Absolutely. And I know there has been a big challenge to get the likes of software developers, for instance, in the last number of years. But actually, you can now access software developers, and actually, it's now your traditional biology, chemistry, physics graduates that are actually starting to struggle. Yeah,
that'll be interesting to see how that goes. So you've talked about the huge amount of work that you guys have been doing to support both SME and multinational. Do you have some examples of kind of notable collaboration projects that you guys have been involved in or supported and facilitated from IRDG?
Yeah, sure, and it's a lot of what we do on a day-to-day and a week-to-week basis. And I always say to our member companies, if I can't help you directly, I'll connect you.
Find somebody.
There's somebody within the network that I can connect you there. Sometimes that can be difficult to quantify sometimes because a lot of the connections we make sometimes can be a little bit intangible. It's saying, hi Sarah, my friend over here has an issue, would you be able to help? And you hear no more maybe until 12 months later and go, my God, Darragh, that connection was amazing. But some of the more structured bits and pieces would have been around, so as you may well know, Department of Enterprise, True Enterprise Ireland have a large funding round called Disruptive Technologies Innovation Fund.
Yes.
Huge funding pot, 500 million over 10 years. I think the 8th call just launched actually 2 days ago.
Wow.
And I think there's still about 100 million left in the pot. So we still have 2 or 3 years to go in terms of that. And actually, we've helped a number of our member companies who wanted to get active in that funding scheme, and we've helped them build a consortium. And we've also helped them with the tips and tricks as to what a successful application actually looks like. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's maybe some of the slightly structured stuff, and then you're always that
aspect's so important though, is how you present it, how you deliver it forward can have a massive impact on the decision that ultimately comes out on the other end.
Absolutely, and I always say to our members, do not look at grant money as free money.
Oh yeah. Because
everywhere a state agency sees grant, they're actually looking at it through an investment lens. So they will put an ROI on any grant money you get. And I think a number of companies maybe don't realise that, but if you start treating it in those terms and realising, no, actually Enterprise Ireland or IDA Ireland has KPIs that the grant money they give me has to hit for them. I think that makes it a whole lot easier and a whole lot clearer. The second area, actually, we have a function called Member Question Time within the network. And that's where any member within the network can pose any question. It doesn't have to be research or innovation related, and pose a challenge out to the network. And we'll put that out to our whole network anonymously. We'll compile the responses, generally goes to about 5 or 6 pages, and then we'll send those responses back to the company in question. And quite often you get another 5 or 6 companies get back in touch with you and go, actually, can I get a copy of that report?
Off the back. That's brilliant.
And as a result, actually, we've ended up seeding a number of kind of what you might call communities of practice or little focus groups. And actually, for about 2 years there, I ran a sustainability leaders group. And actually that sustainability leaders group, the genesis of that was actually a member company asking, we need to build an ESG strategy and we don't know where to start.
Fantastic.
And it just, and
a challenge that I'm sure majority of companies have throughout
and
Ireland.
I think we could record a whole separate podcast.
We definitely could. That's a whole separate topic.
Absolutely. Not to mention ESG, sustainability strategy, not to mention CSRD, the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive. And if we think R&D has a lot of acronyms, sustainability is...
It's an area that we work in. There is a lot in our kind of energy side of the business and sustainability. Everything is an acronym.
Absolutely. So, but I think there's 3 strong areas then that we've prioritised in the last 2 areas that we've looked to build on. The first one was actually to formalise that training and upskilling aspect of what we've always done, but in reality, I wouldn't say in an informal manner, but let's professionalise it a bit more and offer it out to a wider audience. And so we established the IRDG Innovation Skill Net there just over 18 months ago, and we've had an absolutely colossal response to that. It has been a fantastic way then to give companies access to those innovation skill sets. And we're not just talking about the stuff that's pushing the boundaries. Absolutely, we're trying to prioritise the senior leaders and how do they get leaner, meaner, greener. However, there's a whole wave of graduates and senior graduates that need upskilling in the areas of critical thinking, problem solving. The stuff that, definitely my generation maybe now takes for granted, or that I would have learned through osmotic learning, on-the-job learning, because I was in an office.
And in particular, when we have a shortage of these people, invest in them to get, to get the absolute best from them.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And quite often, we'd often get, well, I can't afford to invest. I can't afford to let them go, and I can't give them a day a week or half a day a week to upskill or train. I need them to work on the projects. Well, I'd say, what happens if you don't invest in them?
Definitely.
They'll just leave. And especially the next generation of employees. Because the next generation, just one, because of where they've come from, but 2, because of the virtual and hybrid working environments, their community is no longer the office.
No.
Their community is their friends and where they live.
Definitely.
So they look at changing jobs every 2 years. They have no loyalty to an employer.
Nope.
But if you start to invest in them, and if you give them purpose,
they'll bring back.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah,
and we talk about impact and the positive impact that innovation and funding opportunities can give to a business, but it's the other side of that people don't actually consider. It's the impact of, what if you don't do this? What will the impact of that be? And as you say, when we have a shortage of the core STEM grads coming out, if we're short on them, if you're not investing into making them the absolute best version of themselves that they can be, and working with flexible, because we have an entire generation now of people who only know flexible working. It's what is the impact if you don't make those steps? So it's good to see that you guys have thought one step ahead, and that members are buying into upskilling their team from every level.
And that investment in innovation and innovation skills within your workforce, and this doesn't matter whether you're a 10-person organisation or a 10,000-person organisation, it really feeds into the company culture.
It does
as well. And as the old saying goes, culture eats strategy for breakfast. You can have all the corporate and commercial objectives and strategic policies that you want, but if you don't have a strong working culture, who's going to do it for you? No,
people just won't hang around for
Absolutely.
it. Definitely.
So,
that's interesting.
The second thing we've done, and actually we've just launched the second iteration of it, is, and we've always done a kind of a 2 or 3 year survey of our membership, primarily around R&D tax credits usage. But actually, as we've launched our annual innovation index. So a fantastic opportunity then to actually just, just test the weather in terms of where Irish companies sit, and start to get data behind where innovation happens within an Irish context.
Yeah.
We launched that, first year of that was 2023. That was a fantastic flag in the sand, you know, but you know yourself, one data point does not.
Yes, we have a starting point.
Yeah, absolutely. And we just released the 2024 edition there about 2 months ago. So, and as we build that up, as that becomes an annual process, it will be fascinating to see how that shifts.
What's that's behind it?
Yeah, absolutely. And then the third part then is the innovation management standards and the framework, ISO 56002. So again, quite often, as is normal, the Scandinavian countries are pioneering the launch of innovation frameworks.
Yes.
Sweden in particular have gone after ISO 56002. And so we've started to collaborate with the guys in Sweden who are world leaders in that area. We're also collaborating with the first ISO 56002 certified innovation professional consultant in Ireland, and last year actually we ran a pilot course to test the waters in that in innovation, how to invest in strategic innovation. And de-risk that innovation investment, and we just ran a cohort of that, and we'll run another cohort in 2025. So that's something we're really excited about.
Good.
And even if you spoke to me 3 years ago and said standards and innovation, I would have told you where to go. you know, because innovation, you need to sit in the mess sometimes for innovation to happen and to work. But having said that, I think this framework, can only elevate Irish businesses, you know, along the next generation of growth and export.
Definitely.
Irish businesses have been fantastic at using lean and implementing lean, whether it's Six Sigma processes, whether it's lean processes, in particular Irish manufacturing businesses. Enterprise Ireland and IDA Ireland even recognise Ireland is leaned out.
Yes.
And innovation is the next wave of where Irish industry is going to grow.
Huge opportunity. It's very exciting.
And that is where we'll pause for now. This conversation was just too good to fit into one episode, so we'll continue in a part 2. Thank you for listening, and be sure to tune in for the rest of our discussion on how Ireland became a hub for innovation with Darragh Gaffney from the IRDG in the next episode of Leighton's Expert Exchange.